everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about plein air painting. This is my attempt number 2 at plein air painting. I am a little bit better prepared this time than I was the last time. I have some new Pochade boxes that I'm going to talk about and test out, and I hope that you enjoy the video. So these are the 2 Pochade boxes that I have recently acquired, and I only recently found out what a Pochade box actually is. And it's basically just a painting box. It was started being used in the Impressionist era when they started taking their paints outside, and essentially it's just a box mainly for oil paints, but you can use it for watercolors and various other things too. But to take your oil paints outside and contain them and make it so that most of them as well will have some way of bringing home wet paintings as well, which I'll explain in a minute. Anyway, this little one here is one that I kind of made up myself. Just ignore that brush, it was only sitting in there temporarily. This was actually a box that I inherited from my grandfather, who was an artist. He passed away last year. This is one of the artworks that I have of his in my house. I actually have a couple of them that I have, but this is the only one I have framed and hanging up. So he was mostly a hobby artist, but he was actually really, really talented. And this one is oil, but he painted oils, acrylic, pastels, all kinds of things, portraits, landscape, still life. He was pretty prolific. And yeah, so this is one of his paintings. Before he passed away, he was in a nursing home for a while, and before he moved into the nursing home, we had to clean out his studio. And I ended up getting a lot of his art materials, including a big box of oil paints, some brushes, a big box of various miscellaneous art supplies, and this was actually in it. Now, this was just a timber box that, it was just raw timber, and he was just using it as a pencil box. I do believe he probably made it himself. It does look very homemade, but it was just a plain timber box. He had some pencils and some ceramic sculpture types tools in here. And I was looking at through the stuff I had the other day, trying to find some brushes actually. And I came across this and I thought, wow, that would actually work really well as a little tiny Pochade box. And so what I did is I painted it all white, and I added these little hooks onto it. And the idea is that this little booklet of toned paper, which actually came in the last sketch box that I had, it's by the company Rembrandt, it actually fits perfectly in here. And so these 2 little eyelets are here to hold a panel or this pad of paper into this little section, so I can use that as an easel, and then my paints go in here. And these ones here are just extra ones so that when I close the lid, it will keep my surface separate from the paint. So you can see, because it's recessed, I can put my oil paints in here and use this as my palette, and I can then carry, I think it's a 4 centimeters by 20 centimeters. So I can have a 4 centimeter by 20 centimeter panel in here, and it will sit on these, and it will make it so that I can carry it home without it getting smudged. That's essentially the idea of a Pochade box, by the way. So yeah, this is like my little mini one. And I've got this, I'm gonna put like a really limited palette in here. So essentially just the 3 primaries and white, and then probably burnt sienna. And this is going to be my little mini Pochade box, which I obviously haven't used yet because it's still sparkling clean, but I have sealed this with a bit of varnish so that the paint won't soak into the wood, and I should be able to wipe it clean if I need to. So yeah, so I'm going to test this one out today as well. And then a few weeks ago, I also purchased a Pochade box because I've been looking online ever since I did my last failed attempt at a plein air painting. I realized then that I was really ill-prepared and I didn't really have what I needed to do it successfully. So since then, which was like back in June, I've sort of been shopping around and looking for a Pochade box, but I had some pretty specific requirements. I didn't want it to be super heavy and large. A lot of Pochade boxes, they'll have like, extra drawers and things that pull out, and they can be really cumbersome and complicated. Like they have built-in, easels, and yeah, I didn't really want anything like that. I wanted something that was like super lightweight, super easy to just pack away and chuck in my backpack or take away easily. And so I did a lot of research, and I found an artist, Leon Holmes. He's an Australian artist, and he's a plein air artist, and he actually makes his own Pochade boxes. So this is one here, and I saw it online, and he had a little YouTube video of him using it, and I thought, you know what, I think that's gonna solve all my problems. This here is a mount for a tripod, so it doesn't come with this, but it does come with the screw mount to put this on. So this was with my tripod already. Anyway, it has like this little hook closure, and if I just unhook it here, okay, it then opens up, and this is the inside of the box. So it's really super simple. This I added in myself. This is just a recessed sort of timber area that you can use as a pallet. I wanted to keep it a bit clean though, I'm a bit precious, so I actually put down this section of core flute. So it's just like that plastic core flute. I just taped it in, and I'm going to use this as my palette because I feel like it will be easier to clean and wipe off than the timber. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be using this solely for oil paint or if I'm going to use it for other things as well, like gouache and acrylic and stuff. So I didn't want to put the paint directly onto the timber in case I couldn't then change my medium later on. So I added this in, but essentially it has just little, you know, hooks to hold your panel in place. It also has a recessed area, so you can actually carry, I believe it's 2 wet paintings, and you can close it and they won't touch. I'm not sure, I think they have to sort of fit like exactly in here. I believe it's 9 by 12. I don't have any 9 by 12 panels at the moment. I have ordered some so that they fit in here, but essentially this is a larger panel. This is actually 10 by 14 inch, so it's a little bit bigger. But you can accommodate larger panels, which he did demonstrate in his little demo thing, just by, I don't know if you can, sorry, I don't know if you can see that, I'll tip it this way. But by using the little holders, you can actually accommodate larger panels, as well as panels that will fit in here. So there, so I'll just take that down because I know you can't really see that on there. And it also has a little tray that pops out and can go into here. It has little holes to hold brushes, and you can hold this. It's not too heavy, so you can actually hold it and, you know, paint while you're holding it. But the whole purpose of the mount is that you can mount it onto a tripod. So I'll get my little tripod here, and I know it's a bit difficult to see, but see, this mounts onto the tripod here. So I'm just going to tuck this back in to make life a bit easier for myself. See, that's got like little brackets so it holds in place. But yeah, so you essentially, you know, clip this into the tripod will stand up, and you can then, you know, use your little easel. And then once you're done, you just lock everything back up again, nice and secure, and you can take it home and your paints aren't gonna go everywhere. So, my goal today is to attempt some more oil plein air painting. It is the nicest day we've had so far in Melbourne in the last few weeks. It is actually really windy outside, but the sky is blue and the sun is shining, and that's the most important thing, because with plein air painting, from all the research that I've done and all the videos that I've watched, really sunny days are the best conditions, because you're going to get some really strong shadows and highlights, as opposed to overcast days where everything looks a bit dull. So today is the first day where the sun is actually shining, and so I'm going to head down to Warburton and down near the river, set myself up and do some painting. So I want to test out both of these boxes. So I'm going to do some sketches just in this one first, and then I'm going to take this panel and do a larger study. I'm going to be, sorry, I'm just going to show you a few more things that I purchased. I also purchased this, which is essentially a sealable water tin or brush washer. I just got this off eBay, but it's got obviously you put either, I use water soluble oils, so I can put water in here to wash out my paints, but you could also use solvent. If you wanted to use Gamsol or Terps or something, you could. And the good thing about it is that this actually sits just off the bottom, so when you're cleaning your brush, all of the paint residue and goopy stuff will sink down to the bottom, and your brush actually won't pick up that goop anymore. And it's got like a rubber seal, and so it's spill proof. And so I bought that as well to make my life a little bit easier carrying, that was my cat, carrying my liquids. And at the moment, all of my oil paints are in here. I haven't put my oil paints into my Pochade boxes yet. I'll do that once I start painting. But this is my general little carry tub that has my brushes in it. This is a little container for my medium. The only medium that I've been using is the fast drying medium, which is made for the Winsor & Newton water soluble oil colours that I've been using. I've got this is like another little tray I've been using for the medium. I've got some cloths. I've got myself a little landscape and little viewfinder so that I can, everyone else was using one of those, so I thought I'd get one too. And anyway, this is my collection of water mixable oil colours by Winsor & Newton. So I've been using these for quite a few weeks now, slowly adding to my collection of colours. I started out with just the basic collection of primaries, but I've slowly been adding colours as I watch, various tutorials and things, and get recommendations for colours. Most of the colours that I purchased to start with, I purchased with the intention of painting portraits with them. So I had like a basic portrait sort of palette of colours, and I've slowly added to that with a few others. Some the recent ones I bought a cadmium yellow light, which I'm probably going to use in my basic palette, as well as a few other different colours. So anyway, this is my little carry box. So what I'm going to be doing today is putting out the paints that I'm using in the Pochade boxes, and that means I won't need to carry this big tub with me when I go painting. Once the paint is put out into here, I should in theory just be able to take these with me, and a handful of brushes, some cloth, and my little tin, and that's it. So that's what I'm doing today. And I'm going to take you guys along for the journey, so wish me luck, and I will see you in a minute on location. So this is the first location that I chose. Now, it was super windy today when I was filming this, and so I thought that if I was down by the river it might not be as windy, but it was still pretty windy. But the sun was shining and it was really, really pretty down here. There's lots of beautiful trees, and I was immediately captivated by this particular scene, and this is what I thought I would sketch first. And as usual, I have been a bit ambitious. This probably wasn't, the easiest choice to make, but I just get attracted by light, and, look at that. How could you not want to paint that? But yeah, it was definitely a challenge, and especially because I was testing out my little box to start with. And so trying to capture all of that information into this tiny little sketch was, very ambitious. Anyway, this is me just setting up the box and choosing my paints. I knew that with this smaller box, I just wanted to have a really super limited palette. So I was basically looking for a primary palette, so a blue, a yellow and a red. And then I was going to add some burnt sienna and some white as well. So I ended up choosing phthalo blue, cadmium yellow light, and rose pink, I believe that's what it's called, and burnt sienna and white. So normally I'd use quinacridone magenta, but I don't actually have quinacridone magenta in my collection of paints for oil paints. So the closest I could get was the rose pink, I think it's called, that I have. So that's my red. In hindsight, I think I probably should have gone with a lemon yellow instead of the cadmium yellow light, because the red and the blue were both cool colours, and then the yellow was a warm colour. So it kind of made the greens a bit of a more muted sort of colour when I mix them. So I think in the future I will change the yellow that's in this palette to be the lemon yellow instead of the cadmium yellow. But besides that, I was pretty happy with these colour choices. And yeah, I also have that little, you can see that little jar lid. That's for my medium. So I put a little bit of fast drying medium in there, because the water soluble oils do take as long as regular oils to dry. So normally with my regular oil paint, I'll use something like Liquin or Gamsol, which is a fast drying medium, but the Winsor & Newton water soluble oils actually have a fast drying medium available for them and sort of formulated specifically for them. So I have got some of that, and that's what I was using as my medium. But I did find that it sounds silly because it's a fast drying medium, but it actually dried a little bit too fast. Even just in the lid, it's actually became really gluggy. So I may have to mix a bit of a half mixture next time with some linseed oil and some of the fast drying medium instead of just the medium on its own. But these are all things that we learn. Now I'm painting on paper in this little Pochade box. It does fit panels, but I don't have any panels at the moment. I've actually ordered some panels that will fit into it, but obviously they haven't arrived yet. So I'm just painting on mixed media card. I did give the card a coat of acrylic paint to seal the paper, because if you don't seal the paper before you paint it with oil paint, it'll just absorb and make the paper all oily, and it doesn't really work. You need to seal the paper first if you're going to paint with oil onto paper. So it does have a coat of acrylic paint on it just to seal it, and just a toned sort of grey colour. And so yeah, this is my little palette, and this is me starting out. So I just wanted to sketch, like I knew as soon as I sat down and started sketching this scene, I knew that I'd bitten off way more than I can chew, and I had been super ambitious, which is the same problem I had like the first time I went plein air painting. I sort of, it's really hard to try and think how to capture the scene and what to put and what to leave out. So yeah, I had that problem last time I went, but I fell for the same problem again. This was like a super complicated sketch for such a small canvas. So anyway, I started by just laying in the darks, which is, how I've sort of worked out is the easiest way to go with oil paint, because I've watched so many tutorials and stuff now, and I've been watching lots of other plein air painters, and the things that I have gathered is that it's much easier to lighten up a dark colour than it is to darken a light colour with oil paint. So that's why a lot of people tend to put darks in first, because if you go in too dark, you can lighten it, but if you go in too light, it's much harder to darken again. So my general rule now is just put the darks in first, and then the mid-tones, and then the lights. So this is me just laying in the shadows that I can see in front of me, and it was a bit hard because the sun was kind of in my face a little bit, but I did my best. And yeah, anyway, as far as this little tiny cute Pochade box went, it actually worked really, really well. I was really happy with it. It was so easy to hold. It wasn't heavy at all. My hand started to get a bit crampy towards the end, but I think I was painting for about, I think it was about 45 minutes. So, 45 minutes of holding it, with no break. I kind of would expect my hand to be a little bit sore after that. But it was really good. Super easy to mix the paints on the little palette area. The paper didn't move at all. It sort of stayed in place. And yeah, it worked really well. I was actually really, really happy with this. And I sort of can't wait to use it again. Yeah, so anyway, I will just, play some music and let you guys watch me paint this little sketch for a few minutes. So with this little colour sketch, I obviously wasn't, I knew it wasn't going to be perfect. I was really just trying to capture the light and get a feeling of the backlight in all the trees. And the part that I sort of had the most trouble with was actually the river, because normally when I'm painting rivers, it's actually quite abstract. And the whole purpose of me wanting to do these plein air studies is that I want to try and teach myself to look a little bit closely and a little bit more at values in real life. So look at and study the lights and the darks and textures and shades and things in real life, because it's totally different to what I normally do. If you are not familiar with the artworks that I normally paint, I'll pop a few up onto the screen now. As you can see, generally speaking, I am a very loose, semi-abstract artist. I paint purely from imagination most of the time. I don't usually use references very much, and I use a lot of layers in acrylic paint, and I build up layers and textures and colours and create these fantasy, magical kind of landscapes. And I really enjoy doing that, and I'm not going to stop doing that. I'm going to continue to paint that way, but at the same time, I also wanted to teach myself how to sort of focus a little bit more on, not realism, like I'm not interested in painting super realistic. I'm still painting more impressionist, but I do want to learn how to represent the correct colours in nature and value and light in a more accurate manner, because I feel like that will help me when it comes to my other style of painting and working from intuition and just making things up as I go. So that's why I want to sort of build my skills in this kind of plein air kind of painting. So with this one, it was definitely a challenge. And so back to, as I was saying, I struggled the most actually trying to capture the movement of the river. That was a bit of a challenge, but overall I was pretty happy. I think at the end of it, I managed to capture the light, and the values and the tones were pretty right. I was fairly happy, and I think I got it mostly correct. So yeah, and like I said, this little box worked perfectly. I was absolutely thrilled with it. I thought it was great. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. It ticked all the boxes. It was perfect as a little oil pochade box. So 5 stars, thumbs up, would recommend. The only downside to this location was that it was freezing cold, because I was kind of sitting in the shade and the wind was blowing, my hands were frozen. So I took a few pictures of the location to sort of use as references later, and then I decided to pack up and move to another spot before I started pulling out the other easel. So I drove around about 10 minutes down the road and found this really nice sort of secluded area, like mostly just farmland. Again, a really pretty location. This is just in Yarra Junction in the Yarra Valley, so a little bit down from Warburton. But yeah, it was a really pretty spot, and the wind actually wasn't quite so bad here. There was a bit more sunshine, so I could stand in the sun while I was painting, and it wasn't as cold. And the river comes through here as well. So this is the Yarra River, by the way, which is the main river that runs all the way to the city in Melbourne. And I, once again, decided to choose a ridiculously ambitious subject matter. This tree had obviously fallen down within the last probably week, I'd say. We've had lots of really strong winds up here in the valley for the last couple of weeks, and we've had heaps of trees down. And I think this was obviously a tree that came down probably in the last storm, which was a few days ago. And so I took this picture, and this was kind of the reference I was going for. And I decided to have a go. Again, super ambitious. Like, I really need to be a bit easier on myself for someone who really doesn't have much experience painting from life outside. But anyway, so here is the larger box. And obviously I could fit a lot more colours in this box. I've got like a bigger range because it's a bigger mixing palette area. And yeah, so this is the view that I was working from. I actually didn't end up filming too much of this part of the process of this particular painting, or of painting this in general, mainly because I didn't have anywhere to put my phone. I had a phone stand, but you sort of have to sit it up on something, and I didn't have anywhere here to put it, so I could only really hold it every now and then. And the wind did start to pick up a fair bit, as you can see, so I ended up having to sort of have my other hand on the easel so that it wouldn't tip over in the wind. I don't think that it would have because of the way the legs were positioned, but there were some pretty strong gusts and I didn't trust it 100%. So I spent a lot more time holding the easel and painting, and so I couldn't hold my phone and paint. But I did take a few little clips of just blocking in the colours, and this is the stage of like blocking in most of the values, and I was pretty happy with most of the values. I think that I am looking a lot closer at values now compared to what I would have, a few weeks ago. And yeah, so I was actually pretty happy with how this was coming along. And this is what it looks like towards the end. I think I spent just over an hour. It's probably an hour and 15 minutes getting to this stage here. And there was a few issues with it that I knew I'd have to sort of fix up later on, but I had to go pick up my son from school, so I didn't have time to fix it. And so I thought, I'll just take it home and fix it later. But yeah, generally speaking, just looking at it now, I'm actually a lot happier with it, how it looks at this stage, compared to how it looked when I decided to play with it later. It looks really loose and fresh, and I think the light has been captured really nicely as it is now, whereas when I decided to play around with it and fix it a bit later on, I think I overworked it. And I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. So this is how it looked when I left the location. And you can see that like some of this obviously hadn't finished the water, but this is what it looks like when I'd played around with it out at home a bit. And I feel like I massively overworked it at home. I sort of added in a few more extra trees, which I think worked with the balance, but I've lost a lot of that spontaneous kind of look that it had. But, that's lesson learned. I think from now on, I just need to make sure that I get it mostly finished on location, so I'm not tempted to then play with it later at home, because I know that I'm just going to fiddle with it too much. But anyway, as far as the experience goes and using these boxes, I was super happy, and I think I'm a lot more enthusiastic to go out and paint outdoors more now, because I have these really convenient little painting boxes that I can just pick up and take with me, and everything's going to be contained. I don't need to take my little box of paints with me every time because I know the paints are in there now. And I'm really looking forward to the weather improving in Melbourne a little bit. We're sort of coming into spring soon, so I'll be more encouraged to go outside and do some more painting. And I will keep you updated on my little plein air painting journey. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.